Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be going over the BMW N55 engine reliability video of 2022, and this will apply for the F series and the E series, but please bear in mind that the F series engines were redesigned by BMW to make them a lot stronger and a lot tougher, and if you do have the M Performance one, you will have the better engine overall over the ones found in the E90s and E60s. So let's get on to this video.
What? Goddamn, get it done, will ya? Woo. When the blow up now, everybody's so unusual with it. Shit. But said times in his rhymes, cause his memories. We running through New York, so you know.
So guys, welcome to the BMW N55 engine reliability. And if you can see, my BMW N55 is kind of highly tuned now. In the last 8 months I've had it, I've done a lot of tuning parts, but we're not here to discuss that video, and I'm not going to be discussing all the tuning parts. We're here to discuss the reliability standpoint of the N55. The early N55s, and many of you guys know, on the E90s and E60s were very, very bad. The early models had problems with the injectors, which are up here, the high pressure injectors, which are the same as like what you get on the N54, and also the high pressure fuel pump. They also were plagued in rod bearing failure, and BMW knew that and changed it all on the M Performance engine. Now, if you do have an E90 or E60 one, you'll probably know that the manifold as well is prone to getting carbon build-up a lot, especially on the valves, and the manifolds can become really, really bad. Now, on the E90 and E61s itself as well, the PCV, which usually goes here, had a lot of issues as well, and that's why the majority of people went to a catch can. Now, if you can see, I do have a catch can, but on these M Performance ones, on the F series, BMW actually rectified the CCV and made it a lot better, to the point you don't actually need this. And if you look around, everyone will tell you on the F series ones you don't need it, because BMW done a magnificent job when they rebuilt this engine and made the CCV actually brilliant on this, to the point now it doesn't dump oil back into the cylinders at all, and this catch can doesn't actually catch anything. In the 4 months I've had it, it hasn't done nothing. But I do know on the E60s and E90s, your catch cans would have caught a lot of old oil, especially when you're revving the nuts out of the car. Now, on this car, they do suffer a few other issues. For instance, on this one, before I bought it, the valve cover. Now these, where they're plastic, do like to crack, and obviously the CCV is built in on top of them, and therefore when the CCV goes bad, it's best to just change the whole valve cover out, because it won't be long before the valve cover starts leaking as well, because the CCV up here ends up rupturing, which causes excess pressure on the crankcase, which ends up blowing the gasket anyway. So if you're in here and you're gonna be changing the CCV, change the whole valve cover, because it does come with it, and it ain't a hard job at all to actually change, and it makes more sense to do that than to just replace the CCV at the top and try and glue it down like a lot of people do. That's one of the most common problems on the N55 engine that you will come across, is this one right here. Now, another common problem on this, you probably see where my hand is the oil filter housing gasket and oil cooler gasket. Now, this has been notorious for many, many years. BMW knew this, and it's happened on the M52, the M53s, M54s. It's a common issue. Now, I have changed the oil filter housing gasket on this one for a genuine BMW one. I also did change the gasket on this when I first bought it, because it was leaking. But then I also upgraded it to a Musselman oil cooler to keep the oil temps and coolant temps even lower, because of the fact I don't want them getting so high, because I knew I was taking this car to a high stage tune. Therefore, I did fit a Musselman one, and this coming at £400, but it does lower the oil coolant temps. But that is a common issue, and you do want to rectify it, because if it's leaking, it will leak onto your belts, can derail the belts, and will knock out your tensioner and everything else. So do make sure to change that. I haven't had no issues with any of the belts or the pulleys, because when I bought this, again, the last owner actually already done all that, so I didn't have to worry about it. Now, the next common issue on the N55 is the prone charge pipe. Now, bearing in mind, if you're willing to put more boost to this engine, if you're willing to tune it, you will have to change the charge pipe. The charge pipes were notorious for cracking on the E series, but then saying that, on the F series, a lot of people can go all the way without them cracking, with them tuned, and not have any issues. I believe it depends on the person and how they drive. If you're constantly boosting all the time and redlining it everywhere you go, and obviously keeping high boost numbers constantly throughout the rev range, and of course you're going to end up blowing and cracking the charge pipe. But there's some people who drive it sensibly, even with a tune, and don't boost it, and then what they will do is when they do boost it, they'll let the car cool down, then the charge pipes last a long time. but I know I'm a sensible owner, but I'm still going to be changing the charge pipe later on. I am going to be fitting an upgraded one and taking this one off. You're going to see that in another video, as well as the intercooler. So that's another thing on the N55 is that the charge pipes do like to crack. So do make sure you are aware of that and you factor in a cost to actually change it. And that's regardless, E-Series or F-Series. As I said, nobody really speaks about them on the F-Series, but I'm still going to change it to be on the safe side because I want to be able to run high boost without the issue of having that break at any time and leaving me with fault codes or not being able to boost properly. So that is going to be coming out and we are going to be changing it. Now, another thing on these, which is a must, is the spark plugs on these. Do make sure you change the spark plugs because they are a common problem on them where they can get carboned up and built up and your car just won't run right. So do make sure you actually change them. I've actually changed all 6 of them for the erdium and one step colder spark plugs when I first got the car, so they've all been changed also already, so I don't have to worry about that. But they do like to go bad, and if you are planning to run again extra boost on your N55 engine, make sure to actually change them to the one step colder ones, otherwise you will have issues with them overheating, not firing properly and causing a lot of different codes. So do make sure to upgrade your spark plugs because it won't be able to deal with the extra boost and the extra hot air going into the cylinders. So make sure to upgrade your spark plugs, and if your ignition coils actually do fail, you can easily replace them. Again, they haven't failed on me, but this car has just hit over 120k, so I expect probably them to fail any time soon. So I am expecting them to fail and I will be replacing them as well later on down the line. They are a common problem on BMW and they do use this style ignition coil, the pencil ones, so therefore at any time they're going to fail. I know that and I'm expecting it, but it is very, very easy to change, but they're not a major factor. And to be honest with you, these N performance engines are much, much better than the older N55 engines. Now the next one on these I would be skeptical about is the Vandal solenoids, which sit right down here. Just be careful of them as well because they can go out over 100k, and again it's another thing I'm expecting on this. I mean, everyone says the N performance engines are excellent, then nobody's had any issues with it, especially in the UK with the M135Is, because they're so light they deliver the power easily. But on the same hand, I don't trust any BMW. After 100k, things start failing. The one thing I am glad about is that the valve cover was changed before my time, but obviously I am expecting ignition coils to go and the Vandal solenoids to go. And when they do go, we will be replacing them. They only sit down there, and that will be a job we will be undertaking. Now, the next one I want to bring my point to, before anyone tries and says about it, is the water pumps and thermostats on these. Now, if many of you guys don't know, the N55 uses a plastic water pump design, different to the N52 where it was like an aluminium one, which was actually solid. These use a plastic one, and in extreme heats, these will crack and will start leaking. Now, again, in the UK, I haven't known anyone to have water pump failure early on the M135i, and especially on the N55 N performance engines. But in the US, I do know it is a common problem, and a lot of you guys will change out for preservative maintenance because of the fact you guys get a lot of high heat over there, and obviously you don't want it going out while you're 2,000 miles away from your house. So it is a weak point, especially on these engines, and it is something that you need to be aware of, because if that ain't running right, or if it's stuck open or closed, whatever it is, one, it can cause catastrophic damage to your engine both ways because the car ain't getting its temperature, or it's overheating. So, and therefore that is crucial for your engine, and that's what can cause a lot of the rod bearing failures on the early E-Series models, because if the engine ain't coming up to temperature, the oil ain't breaking down properly inside the engine to fin it up, therefore it ain't getting around the rod bearings because the oil will be too thick because the car ain't coming up to temperature properly. So just bear that in mind when you actually buy an N55 engine. Now, it will be a lot better if the water pump and thermostat have been changed, because it's going to save you a massive, massive headache. So there you have it, guys. Realistically, the N55 engine really, really isn't that bad. This has to be one of BMW's best engines ever since the N52. And this is why BMW threw it into a lot of F-Series, the N55, because of the way it delivered power and the way it actually performs. Now, a lot of people don't want to believe that. A lot of people favor the N54, but BMW would have continued the N54 if it was that reliable, but they never. They continued the N55, and these N performance engines, many of you guys don't know, share the same parts along with the S55. For instance, a lot of the internals inside have the same parts from the S55 in the N55, and this is how BMW managed to make this one so reliable compared to the previous gen N55 engines. Now, if many of you guys don't know as well, when you opted for the M Performance pack, which this has, BMW would give you an extra, I believe, 20 bhp on the engine, and that's why these made 320 bhp. If you didn't opt for the M Performance pack, like a lot of people in the US, you guys get the 535i and the F10s, you only have the standard 302 bhp or 300 brake. I'm not sure what it is, but that's because unless you opt for that pack, you will not get the extra bhp out this engine. But BMW done that because they knew it could handle it, because it's got a lot of parts from the S55. Therefore, it does make this engine very, very reliable. And anyone will tell you that about the S55 as well. The engine is very, very reliable and very solid. This was BMW's best award-winning engine after the M52. BMW didn't have many award-winning engines. I think the M52 and the M55 were their two award-winning engines, and that is why they continued the generation of this engine into the F series from the E, because they improved on it and made it much, much better. And anyone will tell you with the 135i or 235i, 335i, that this engine is absolutely solid, and BMW wanted to put them out by the dozens to make everyone enjoy it and to try and kill off the M54, which they did in turn, because they made more M55 engines and made people fall in love with this engine because the way it delivers power, especially on the M cars. So it's really, really good. And if you are in the market looking for one, go and get one. Do make sure it is the M Performance model, because these cars are very, very reliable and you will not regret buying one of them. I have loved mine since the first day I've actually bought it. I always wanted one of these. I bought one and I'm very, very happy with the M55 engine, and I couldn't want anything else. It delivers on everything I want. Powerful enough, goes when I need it to go, super reliable, and doesn't give me any issues, unlike a lot of other cars I actually have. This car is a daily car. You can use daily, or you can use it as your normal summer car, depending on what you want, but it performs flawlessly in throughout all the weather. Rain or shine, this car outperforms all the time. Very economical to use as well. I don't have any issues regardless of it being tuned either. Just be aware of that, and do make sure you do them things on the M55 engine, and just make sure you do the regular oil changes that this car needs to make it super ultra reliable. Check the service history when actually buying one, and make sure these cars have been serviced every 5,000 to 6,000 miles, because a lot of people, especially when they bought the F series, were aware of the long service intervals because it was infusers like ourselves, and they would have serviced it every 5,000 miles without fail, because it would have only been infusers that would have bought this. So there you have it, guys. The N55 engine is a super, super reliable engine, and I wouldn't hesitate to go and buy another one if it come up on the market at all, because this engine doesn't give me no issues, and it surely won't give you no issues either long term. Okay guys, so as you've seen there, I've now gone over the BMW N55 Engine Reliability 2022. As I said to you, these engines are actually very, very bulletproof. A lot of the old issues on the M55 that you'll read up does not apply to the M Performance ones. If you have an engine cover with the M Performance, these problems from the E series do not follow over to the newer engines. So do not believe what you read on the E series engines about the rod bearings going out and this going out. It was all rectified on the later M Performance ones by BMW that you'll find in the F series. So if you are in the market for an M55 or an M135i, M235i, go and buy it, and do not be put off by what you read. It does not apply to these engines, and if you look after this engine, these engines are absolutely bulletproof. Believe me when I tell you that. There's people driving an S55 with big horsepower, with the same internals as the M55, and still running perfectly fine without rod bearing failure. So do not believe everything you read. So I hope this video is actually going to help you decide about the M55 engine, and if you do want to know how reliable it is, it's a bulletproof engine. Thank you very much for watching, guys. It's BMW Dr. Dean here, and goodbye.